Okay, our last problem for chapter 11 is S11-1. I've gone to the website, for the book website that helps us kind of look at some real life examples of what financial statements might look like in practice. And the company that we're working with on this problem is Home Depot. So I've clicked on the Home Depot, gone over to the tab, and I brought us to where we need to be for the first question, which is, as of January 30th, 2011, how many shares of common stock were authorized, how many shares were issued, and how many shares were held in treasury? Well, for that, we can go to the balance sheet. So I brought us right up here to the consolidated balance sheets. And if we scroll down here until we get to the stockholders' equity section, we can find the number of shares that are authorized, issued, outstanding, as well as treasury shares, right? So first is the number of shares that were authorized. Well, it tells us that common stock par value of 5 cents authorized 10 billion shares. So if we look at that, we can already cross out letter C. Letter C couldn't be correct because we have 10 billion shares that are authorized. The next part was how many shares were issued. If we keep reading on, we find that 1.722 billion shares were issued in January 30th, 2011. So now we've narrowed our answers down to either B or D. And then the final part wants to know how many shares were held in treasury. If we go down here to treasury stock, we see 99 million shares at January 30th, 2011. Therefore, our answer is D for this first question. Okay? Again, why are we looking at this problem? Why are we doing this problem? I just want to give you some exposure to what real-life financial statements might look like in practice. Okay? The next problem, 2, says, according to the retained earnings column in the statement of stockholders' equity, what was the total dollar amount of cash dividends declared during the year ended January 30th, 2011? So let's scroll down here. Here we're at the consolidated statements of stockholders' equity and comprehensive income. So if we look, this first part is February 3rd, 2008. Next, February 1st, 2009. We want to go all the way to January 30th, 2011. That comes up all the way down here. Notice that this January 31st, 2010 represents the beginning balance. This January 30th, 2011 represents the ending balance. Okay? All right, so it wants to know in this problem what is the dollar amount of cash dividends declared during this year. Well, if we look for cash dividends, we find cash dividends, this line item where this little hand cursor is 1.569 is the amount, or 1.569 billion is the amount of cash dividends that have been declared during this year for January 30th, 2011, ended January 30th, 2011. The last one says that according to the income statement, how has the Home Depot's net earnings and basic earnings per share changed over the past 3 years? So now we want to look at the income statement. If we go up to the first statement that we're given, so after this report here, after the independent auditor's report, if we go down, the next statement that we're given is the earnings statement, okay? So if we look at the net overall earnings, we find that January 30th, 2011 is higher than January 30th, 2010 and higher than February 2009, right? So it looks like earnings have been going up, but it also wants to know what's been going to basic earnings per share over the last 3 years. And here we can see that earnings per share has also increased. So why look at both numbers? Why not just look at net earnings if we can see that that's been going up? Well, we've talked about a number of different ways that you can finance operations, namely being debt or equity, right? Well, if you finance operations and operations have increased, right, you would expect that your earnings would also go up. But the question is that who are those earnings going to, right? If you finance your operations by issuing more stock, therefore the outstanding base of equity has increased, right? Then your earnings per share could potentially be going down while your net earnings is going up, right? So the earnings per share lets us know how much of earnings per share of stock are we actually getting, right? So that's why we look at both of the ratios. All right, this was S11-1. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me.